Today, we welcome Donna Hartley, an extraordinary survivor, international speaker, author, and one of the world's most recognized past life readers. From the stages of ABC, CBS, and PBS to the pages of the New York Times, her voice has inspired millions. In this episode, we explore a captivating and profound idea: how our past lives ripple into our present one, influencing our purpose, our fears, our relationships, and even the paths we seem destined to walk. So, welcome, Donna, to I Awaken. It's a pleasure to be hosting you.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. It's morning in California, so thank you very much.
Yeah, okay. So, moving on, Donna, you spent years helping people understand the echoes of their past lives. So, what was the moment when you first realized past life patterns were weaving into your current experiences?
Well, when I was 6 years old, I had an experience. I went out of my body because I almost died, but it really was when I was 30 years old and survived a DC-10 plane crash and had that you go to the other side, you know that there is life after this life. That's what really showed me that it's not just what we see on Earth. This is just one dimension. There was Atlantis time and there was Lemuria and there was star seeds. So Earth is just one level. It was a lot to handle. So I started studying, but I meditated. I got quiet. I got out in nature. I wanted to figure all this out. And it was amazing because, if you're going to do past life readings or if you're going to even understand your own past life reading, you have to get quiet inside. You have to turn off everything from the outside world because there's three ways to understand your past life reading. One is that you go to a person that's called regression and they calm you down and they talk you through it for a couple hours. The second one is you come to someone like me. I can pick up your past life records once you give me permission to go into your records. Or the third way, you can do it. You're a channel, but you really got to clean up your act and get lots of sleep and, the energy and nutrition, all that, because sugar and things like that clog your brain, artificial foods. So you have to be clear so you can see it. And many people start to see their past lives just with a little clip from a dream. That's where people start sometimes.
That's very interesting. You know how our past lives are connected to the one that we're living right now. But Donna, you just mentioned something about the afterlife, and I've always been curious about what it's like after we die. So how was it? If you can share it, like what was the
Sure.
experience for you? Yeah.
Yeah. I've crossed over a few times because I've had 3 heart surgeries and I've had cancer surgery, so I've asked to cross over every time, but I've also asked to come back. I think that's part of it. You say, "I wanna go over and I wanna come back." So, when I went out of my body for my major heart surgery, I could feel going up a little bit, and then I looked over to where my body was and looked down. Then I looked up and I saw 12, oh, I don't know what I guess souls were over my body. So and I couldn't see all of their body. I could see like a hologram, like the waist up, but how I recognized who they were, some had mask on like doctors that had passed on, the American doctors. Some had Native American headdresses. Some had the hats on from India, you know what I mean? So I had these different cultures and I could see, and it was like they were nodding to me that I could go up and they would watch over my body. So when I did, I met my mentor first, George. I've had a mentor and he's passed over. So I met George. Telepathically, they communicate. Now they don't talk, it's like telepathic. And to me, it was like they were a hologram, like I could put my hand through them. But I kind of only saw the waist up and they looked younger. They didn't look like when they were sick and they passed on. So first I went to a building that kind of looked like a church, but it wasn't really. The whole ceiling was open. And then I saw on the one hand side a lot of people I knew, and on the other hand, a lot of people I knew. So I was going down there and I could see my stepfather and my father and my mother and people, old boyfriends I had dated and, friends and girlfriends. So they telepathically communicated with me, and they said things that maybe only the two of us would know. So it was a reminder that they had known me on the earth level. Then all of a sudden I felt like I was moving again. And that time I went to what you would call the ascended masters. Now, I could not see them at all. My vibration isn't high enough. They were like little balls of light going around. Okay. But telepathically, I could understand what they were saying to me. So no one judges you on the other side. They're happy, they're there, but they enlighten me about what was happening in the world and how we had to honor the earth and how people have to start to work together. And there would be up and down times in the world, and especially in America and in different countries too. But that was like a cleansing process that we had to raise our vibrations. And that was my assignment to go back and I went, "Oh, but it's really nice and calm up here." The feeling was pure love. I have never felt love like that on earth, never. So my assignment was to go back and to be part of that positive energy. So that I would say, is a light worker, someone that no matter where they go, their energy is positive and people can feel it. And sometimes you don't have to even say anything. You just carry the light. You're just positive. So that to me was, my assignment. So when I came back in my body, I felt like a clunk, like so I just dropped in. And I was, um, by then, I was not in the operating table. I was in the recovery. Okay, in that room, which they kept you for a day in ICU. And then when I started to wake up, I didn't remember everything that moment. It was like groggy because I was on the drugs but I could see images and I could have that feeling, and it started to come then the full image of it. So people say, would I doubt that? And I have to tell you, it was so strong and so magnificent. I will never doubt that experience.
That's amazing. It's very fascinating, and it's also very relieving to know that it's not nothingness after we die, like many people claim. That there's a world out there, and it just gives me a little relief to know that, and it makes the concept of death a little less scary. So thank you so much for sharing that, Donna. And your the conversation about past life that we had brings me to the question of deja vu. So some people feel deja vu or unexplainable connections to places or people. In your experience, how often are these tied to past life memories rather than coincidence?
I would say a moment of deja vu or a familiar moment are absolutely true past life that you lived, because we attract in this life things we're familiar to, things that we've known before in many lifetimes. So when people say, "Oh, I'm drawn to horses. I can't understand why." Horses. And if I do a past life reading, I go, "Well, you had this ranch, you lived here, or you had horses in Europe." So it's familiar. And I've had it many times. And many people say, "Gee, I just feel drawn to Italy. I've never been there." Or people say, I don't know. I just get this mountain feeling all the time and a stream, and I can see myself sitting there as a young child. I absolutely say that is a past life memory. Now, some of them can be traumatic because you're clearing things from the past, but some of them can be very loving and showing you that you are a whole person. See, what happens with the soul, we come to earth, very low level, earth is, and we forget that we're already beautiful, that we're already whole, that we're already connected to a higher source. And then we get caught in it down here. We go, "Oh, I'm not really good at this, or I won't get the new job." And that's not true. We need to be connected to that higher spirit, that higher love, that pure truth. And so those little flashes of, a dream or a deja vu. And I have them a lot. And I talk to a lot of people that have them. And they ask me, they go, why? Why am I drawn to this culture? Why did I instantly like this person in high school? And I married him, and he's always been my protector. Well, because he protected her and saved her in different lives. See, so that's click. Now, if you're not an enlightened soul, you don't get those moments. But if you start to raise your vibration, you become aware, you meditate, then you get those moments. And again, don't doubt them. They are little messages telling you, yes, you lived there. You had a good life. Yes, you're finishing up that karma or that lesson from that lifetime. So I think those moments are great.
Yes, they are, and they can be a little bit confusing also. And it's not always like related to a place or some people. Sometimes there's some events that happens, and we are like, oh, this exact thing has happened. This exact scenario has happened to me uh, before too, but it hasn't. So how do you explain that? Do you think that these scenarios they repeat over lifetimes? How does that work?
Well, that could be a premonition of what is to come. Okay, so for example, you have a dream that you are drowning. Now, in real life, you're not going to drown, but you are drowning with your emotions. You are drowning in your job. You are drowning in your relationship. See, it's a warning to say, look at your life. You are drowning. Now, that's one way. Another one, I had the plane crash dream 6 times before the plane crash that I was on happened. So it was my premonition. I had the opportunity and I did change my flight, but I went back to it because I had to go through that experience. I had to go through it because I was at an all time low. I was an actress in Hollywood. It was not a good time in my life. I was thinking of suicide. So I was drawing that energy to me, that negative. And then at that moment when I chose light and truthful and my excitement, then I lived. I was able to get out of the plane crash, the last one out of my section. So I think those premonitions can come in 2 ways, but I think we need to pay attention because we spend most of our life looking on the outside. You gotta go in. You gotta look on the inside to figure out what's really happening. So when people get gut feelings, I say, pay attention. That is telling you. Your gut feeling is telling you something. When I do readings, the very last one is called a wild card, and I give 3 facts about one life and 3 facts about another life. And I let my clients close their eyes and think which life is the life that's going to tell them what they need to hear before we close the session. I am telling you, they pick the right life every time. They have that intuition. They just don't trust it. And then the message comes through for them. So that's what we have to do. When we're crazy, when we can't make up our mind, I say go out in nature, stand on the grass, stand on the ground, and then just say, please let me get calm and think of what decision I should do in my life. Because we all have decisions. What is I say, the highest and best good for me and all people concerned? You can say any words you want to. But that then it helps you from that other side and from events that might be coming your way. So you don't have to go through the crash, so you can see it ahead of time and take another choice.
That's so true. And this could open a powerful conversation about intuition and the unseen threads guiding our choices. So, Donna, past lives can carry both wisdom and unresolved energy. So, what signs should someone look for when a challenge they are facing isn't just emotional but karmic?
Well, I think women in all countries today have feel like they have been victims in many lives. Victims. They didn't have a voice. They were unseen. And in this life, I think when they get those feelings, I think it's their inner self calling on them to say, not this life. Women have the right to speak up. So when they look at that and say, look, I'm hanging on to these old beliefs from many, many lifetimes. It is my job to shed it. Now, easier said than done. Okay. because you have to go inside and forgive yourself. And you don't even know what you're forgiving yourself for sometimes, but you're saying, I'm forgiving that I'm holding these unworthy ideas about me. Maybe in 20 lifetimes, I was put down or I didn't have a voice. So I forgive all the people that were involved in that, all of them. But I forgive myself the most for allowing it to happen. So that's part of that forgiveness process. Other people forgive by going outside and screaming and yelling and climbing a mountain and, meditating. But I think when we bring a pattern in, and that's the key word, pattern. If you go, uh-oh, this pattern happened. I felt unworthy with my mother. Oh, it happened with a boyfriend. Oh, it happened with my boss. Oh, it's happening with my husband. That is your pattern. Then you have to look at it and say, that happened another time, another place. But the most important life is this one right now that I'm living. So this is the life that I need to clear up. And I need to look at that pattern. And people go to therapists, people go to retreats, whatever it takes to let go of that. And I'm not saying you get rid of it in 5 days. Sometimes it takes months or years, but I'm saying everyone can clear those patterns if they choose to. Takes some work, takes some understanding, maybe talking to people, but absolutely those negative patterns. So I don't, but they manifest, you're right, in emotions in this life, but the patterns came from another one and they were triggered in this life. So you fall back on those old emotions. So now it's time to say, okay, I just got triggered, but that's the pattern. I know that pattern. So I'm going to stop and not get caught and start to talk about that person and think they're better than me. Those kind of patterns. So again, you have to be really conscious, but it's worth doing because who wants those patterns over and over again? What I say to everyone is if you don't stop the patterns, then you repeat. So when you talk about lessons, and you talk about the Akashic records, our lessons, if you're level 1, 2, or 3, that's in consciousness, goes to the Akashic records. We repeat, repeat, and repeat. But when your soul becomes enlightened and you go to level 4 or 5, you break those karmic ties and you don't have to come back and keep doing those lessons. So when I do readings, there's the karmic ones and then there's the spiritual ones above that, where you can tap into energy that you lived on the planet of Atlantis or Lemuria, something like that.
Absolutely. It's very important to recognize those patterns, and understanding this can empower listeners to approach their struggles with a completely new perspective. That's a great advice. Thank you so much, Donna. So, lastly, Donna, your readings have taken you through extraordinary stories and souls. Which past life revelation has stayed with you the most, and why did it resonate so deeply?
Oh, you know, there's so many. I'm going to tell you two short ones because both of them impacted me. I read for a lady that was a Black lady in America, and she wanted to know where her unworthiness came from, but also in this life, she's a go getter. She's a go getter. She's really dynamic. And I picked her up in the slave time in America. And I picked her up during the Civil War. And she was a boy. And she was able, with all that confusion going on, to run away to Missouri, and she became a Pony Express rider. Means they rode very fast and they delivered the mail. And then they hopped on a next horse and they went and they did that. She did it for about, I'm not sure, but about 14 months. And she didn't want to come back. She kept wanting to go west, 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 get away. And they never caught her. But some people that were going to rob the mail bags because it carried things, on those horses, came up on him because now she's a him. And she saw that. She put the saddle really tight and put the rope of the mail. And when she got hit by the bullet that killed her and fell off, she hit the horse and the horse carried on. And when we were done with the reading, I'll never forget this. She said, not about herself. She said, I was free for all those months and I loved it. She said, did the horse make it? Was the horse safe? Now that's a pure soul. She was free for those 14 months and it proved to her. And that's the energy she carries in this life. Okay. Now, then I read for another lady and I said, "Is there anything familiar you'd like to heal?" And she goes, "Well, I was in Paris and way on this back street, this little church." And she goes, "I mean, little, called to me." And I said, "Let's see if you have a life there." So she did. In World War I, she was raped. Uh, and so her parents kicked her out of the house. So she went to that church to pray and she fell asleep there, but she also miscarried. She didn't have the child. And the nuns found her. And she stayed there for all those years and she helped them in this little church. And then they had a little place in the backyard and they had a garden and not that many nuns, maybe 8 of them. But when World War II came, guess what? She saved hundreds of lives. She saved pilots. She saved young girls. She was older now. She had that wisdom. She had that determination she didn't have when she was young. She didn't care about the enemies there. She walked right through the line. She was known for being one tough nun. And she fulfilled what she couldn't do as a young child and protect herself when that terrible incident happened when she was probably like 15. And even the nuns in the place were like, "No, we'll get caught. You can't do this." But she wouldn't listen and they didn't get caught. So she had worked that underground. She got people out safely. She forged passports. She did it all. But she was determined what had happened to her would not happen to other people. So she did that all in one lifetime. See what I'm saying? She understood that one in one lifetime, where the other one, it was a past lifetime. So again, you can claim that energy from another life or another energy and complete it in one lifetime. So when she was looking at me in this lifetime, the lady with the church, she was crying and she said, "That's why I felt so good when I was in that church, that little rundown church on a side street." She said it just resonated. You were talking about the deja vu and that she just said I just stayed there for hours and cried and felt good. So again, I want people that are listening to trust their own gut. Please ask yourself first what you're feeling and trust the feelings you have inside of you first.
Those were some really heart touching stories, and truly it just makes me wonder if the wisdom and compassion that we often have in this life, maybe some of them we, take from the people that we were in our past lives. So that it's very fascinating.
They definitely do, because when you come in, before you're born, you meet with your guides, your mentors, your spirit guides. You meet with your karmic family. You meet with your what you want to complete, your soul family, and you choose many people that have been in other lifetimes with you. Not all of them, but you choose many. I call it the close circle, and then you have another circle and another circle. So you want to see them in this lifetime. In fact, you could run into a husband you married in another life, but you're not meant to be. You could see them in a grocery store and have a nice conversation. They could be part of your group, but you weren't meant to be with them. But the universe at least shows that both of you are doing, happy and you're doing things. But absolutely, when somebody feels familiar, you have to say, "How do I know them in another life? Is this a good relationship or is this a karmic relationship that I have a lesson to learn from?" See, because there's both those and they're not good or bad. Nobody judges on the other side when you come in. And when you come in, it's not an accident. They decide who's going to be your family, where you're going to live, what country, what culture, what time period. So if people think they're an accident, they are not. They have chosen to come in at this time in the world to do things and to help. Now, many people are getting enlightened now and finally starting to meditate, starting to trust their intuition, starting to honor the earth, and the earth changes, starting to honor the animals, starting to really be aware of their words and not lying or cheating, but want to be more honest. So good things are happening.
It's really fascinating to know that how everything is just so interconnected, and most often than not, nothing is a coincidence anymore. It's really interesting to know that, and understanding. I mean, these stories that understanding these stories often mirror universal human truths, and your insight can help listeners feel less alone in their journey. So, finally, Donna, thank you for guiding us. But before we wrap this up, could you share with our listeners how can they connect with you personally, learn more about past lives, or maybe book a past life reading with you?
Okay, so the best way is my website, and it's under my name, Donna, Donna, Hartley, HARTLEY.com. How do you know if you're on the right website? There's a big plane crash that is one of the sliders that goes on, but it talks about the plane crash. I offer 5 to 6 lives in like an hour, 60 minutes to 70 minutes. Everybody gets 2 questions that they want to ask, that they want to know about some life or some relationship with their mother or father, their children or something. But also so I had my spirit guide protecting me, but theirs comes in also and it's channeled. So they have direct messages to tell that client. So I have 2 spirit guides there, mine protecting me and theirs. And that way they're getting a direct message. That's why they always say their full name they're born with, their date of birth, and their location they're born. That gives me permission and their guides to go into their records so I can say, this is what happened in a past life. But it's not so much the past life, but this is why you came back with that pattern. See, I only pick up lives that connect directly to the life we're living now because we're here to clear all this up. So that's the most important thing. Plus, there's tons of gifts. People have gifts. So, how do they develop those gifts? That's what they want to know too. How do I complete that? How do I develop my gifts? So it's exciting for them and it's exciting for me because I travel all over the world in my mind and visit all these countries and all these places and all this history I sometimes didn't even know it existed. So that's how they do. They get online, they fill out a little thing, and they email me. And that's how they can book a past life reading.
Great, great. I'll have all the details on my show listing, and all of it it sounds very interesting. I'm sure that the listeners are hooked and they would definitely want to book a session with you. So, Donna, thank you for guiding us into a realm where time becomes a teacher and every lifetime becomes part of a greater story. For everyone listening, may this conversation awaken a deeper curiosity within you about your patterns, your purpose, and the ancient wisdom you carry. If something in your life feels familiar, cyclical, or inexplicably heavy, perhaps it's an invitation to look beyond the present moment. Let this be your reminder that healing is timeless and your journey is far more expansive than you ever imagined.